Today I'm going to talk about what I think is going to happen in the US midterm election. It's 2022 and I've been following it a little bit. So what I think will happen is that there will be slight Democrat losses in both of the chambers of Congress, so that's the House of Representatives and also the Senate. I think Democrats will unfortunately lose both of those chambers, both of those parts of the legislative branch, but I don't think they will be severe losses. I don't think there'll be any sort of Republican landslide, or the Republicans will be, it'll be 70-30 in the House, or even 60-40, in the Senate. I don't think it will be anything like that. I don't think there will be a big red wave coming, and I'm just going to talk about why I think that is. And if you've read the video's title, I think that that's because of a very, not really complex, but a nuanced situation when it comes to the economy and how the economic conditions in America reflect on the Biden administration. So you'll probably know that the First World West over the last couple of years has generally been going through a pretty bad time economically. And obviously that's going to reflect badly on any government, and that's obvious. That's what everyone knows going into this. That's one of the big factors, one of the big reasons why the Republicans are projected to do so well. But the other thing is, what has happened to America specifically is because of the Russia-Ukraine war, there was something in America that didn't really happen, at least to the same extent, in many other countries, many European countries that were affected by the economic fallout of that. What that was the scale of gas price increases. That's because in America there aren't really many laws against price gouging. So along with the actual gas crisis, the actual gas shortage, which affected a lot of Europe, America, and a lot of the world in general, after the fallout of the Russia-Ukraine sanctions and trade war, is America was affected a lot more by that than a lot of other countries. So what that led to was a massive spike in gas prices. It came to a peak on June 16th. I believe it was $4.99 a gallon on June 16th. And then what's actually happened is it's rapidly gone down because it was a fake gas increase, a lot of it, because companies were just doing it because people knew there was a gas crisis on, so they all felt they could get away with gouging the prices, artificially inflating them. Is that it came down very quickly because it wasn't caused by real long-term big economic factors. And what's actually happened is that's came down from $4.99 a gallon to $3.82 a gallon on November the 3rd. That's a decrease of 23% in 4.5 months. So that's a pretty rapid, pretty radical change in people's economic conditions. If you have a job that is very dependent on you driving, if you're a delivery person, I don't know, whatever your job does, if you commute a long way to your job, that will affect you massively. Your life will have become tangibly better over the past few months. And and what that means is that a lot of American voters might perceive this period of time not as a long-term slow decline in the American economy, which it is, because almost all of the markers are saying that wages have been falling against inflation in America for every month since April 2021. House prices have been skyrocketing, as they have for years, but recently, over the past few years, because big companies have been buying up thousands of houses in whole areas and just artificially inflating the prices to rent or buy there for the entire area. And just a couple of years ago, the average one-bedroom flat, the average one-bedroom apartment in every single state in America has been unaffordable for anyone on any minimum wage in any state in America. So now, if you earn minimum wage anywhere in the best state, in, I don't know, Georgia or whatever, in some really good state for the economy, you can never, nowhere in America, afford to rent a one-bedroom place just for yourself to live. So there is definitely a long-term economic decline going on in America, but because it's happening slowly, because it's been happening for a while, because it's not the closest thing that's been happening to the election, and remember, politically, people have quite short-term memory spans, people might perceive this period of time as a little economic boom, even though it's not. If this affects them, if their life is affected by these conditions specifically, particularly, then they may think that they are in some sort of economic boom, which I guess in a sense they are, but it's just very aesthetic. It's not happening anywhere else. It's just been caused by companies' greed, which I guess is a nice little turn of events. But yeah, that will, I think, massively mitigate the losses of the Democrats going into this election, because the economic conversation has not been completely won by the Republican Party, which it is sometimes, optically. I did hear something somewhere that the 9 months leading up to an election is the most important, and I wouldn't be surprised. So let's see how that shakes out. Another big thing which I think will mitigate Democrat losses in this election is the abortion conversation. Let's talk about Kansas. So I don't know if you remember this, but a while back, a few months ago, there was a referendum in Kansas, which is quite a firm red state. I'll just have a look at the election results here. In the 2020 election, they voted 56% in favour of Donald Trump and 41% in favour of Joe Biden. So pretty firm red state. But in the 2022 Kansas value them both amendment referendum, 40% voted to strip constitutional protections for abortion, and 59.1% voted to keep the protections for abortion. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. So that shows that even Republicans generally don't support abortion, and that's may seem quite strange because it's such a contentious topic in not just America but around the world. But a lot of people, a pretty firm majority of people, for a long time now, have been in favour of abortion. If you look at, give me a second here, I wrote down some notes. Oh yes, according to Gallup poll, which is a pretty big, reliable pollster agency, the ratio is 39% to 55% against or for when it comes to abortion in most cases. And then it's the same, but with 37% against and 61% for from Pew Research Center. So there is big statistical support amongst the voters for abortion, but Republicans just don't match that. They don't want it. They're against it, and they're willing to lose to stick to that principle, which is a little bit heartless if you ask me. But yeah, they got kind of blown out of the water in that one. They thought they'd be secured, but Kansas actually said no. We generally support abortion, even though we may vote red for economic reasons or whatever else. So obviously the overturning of Roe v. Wade, there's been a bit of backlash against Republicans, and I think now a lot of people are realising the reality of what Republican governance means, and that will also work against them in this election. So there's a lot of things against them here. Also, the gubernatorial races, funny word, there's a lot of key races for governor to keep your eye out for going on as well. John Fetterman, a Democratic candidate, versus Dr. Mehmet Oz, a Republican candidate. Fetterman is slightly left-wing. He likes, he wants social programs, and he wants to reduce police funding and put it more into social systems. Seems like a good guy. I haven't looked too much into his policies, but I've just been looking at the race itself, the stats, the polls, and although John Fetterman has taken a big dip in the polls recently, because unfortunately he had a stroke, which has affected his motion and his physicality a lot, so he's been very hindered recently, because just very unluckily he just, a few weeks before the election, well I think it was a couple months maybe, but just before the election he had a stroke. So that's affected his performance, has affected his optics, and people are thinking about maybe this guy isn't fit enough. But although he has had a debilitating stroke and witnessed a lot of embarrassment and backlash and insecurity, he is still, according to 538, which is a collaboration of all different polls that they find from different places, they say that Fetterman is still at 46.8% on the opinion polls for him, and Dr. Oz is on 46.4%. So Fetterman, despite all this, is still slightly ahead. Still remains to be seen if he'll actually win it, if he'll actually pull it off, but his performance so far has been very good. I mean, before all this happened, even up to a month or two, he had 6-point leads, 7-point leads, up to 10-point leads in September. People hated Oz. He was 10 points ahead of him. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. So yeah, there are a few significant factors going against the bigger factors, the most important ones, which are for the Republicans. The most important factors are the long-term economic performance and obviously the incumbency rule. Which means people get pissed off with the incumbent, the current governing party. It's just a psychological thing. Whatever's happening, whatever bad thing, there is a little bit of psychology in people's heads where they will just blame the current government and want a change. It always happens. It's a mathematical thing that just happens. Whoever it is, however good they're doing, they will be at a slight disadvantage because they're the incumbent. And on the other side of things, there are more factors pushing against that, which I believe will cancel out to make a slight Republican victory. That's what I think. But I guess you don't need to listen to me. We'll see in a few days. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, watching me talk shite, but hopefully had a few nice little statistics in there where you learned something, or at least made you think a little bit, made you think about what you think's going to happen, what you think should happen. Hopefully I just threw in a few little facts there that made you think. So thank you for watching. Bye bye.